The 2023 AFC Asian Cup at long last has a new host. You heard that right? At long last, after it's been quite a while that China, the original host, actually pulled out of hosting the tournament next year. That is, of course, Asia's Continental International Cup. They pulled out of that, and finally we have new hosts in Qatar. Qatar, incidentally, we remember, would be hosting the World Cup later this year in December, and now will also have the responsibility of hosting the AFC Asian Cup. And that's an interesting thing in more ways than one, not just because, of course, they'll be hosting back-to-back tournaments, but because Qatar are also the reigning AFC Asian Cup champions. However, what if I told you that Qatar getting to host this AFC Asian Cup actually means that there's a very strong chance that India could be hosting the 2027 edition of the AFC Asia Cup? Doubtless you'd be thinking I'm making something up, but that's not really the case. In fact, as I'm going to explain to you right here, right now, there's been a few moving parts there, which actually means that the AFC Asian Cup can come to India for the first time in 2027. But to get to how that is exactly the case, let's just look at how it is that this entire thing started. Now, again, earlier today, news broke that Qatar would in fact be the new host, or the newly confirmed host, of the 2023 AFC Asian Cup. Doubtless you'd be wondering why it is we need new hosts to begin with. Well, that's because the main host, or the original host, who were meant to be China for this particular tournament, well, they kind of ended up pulling out of their hosting duties, citing concerns with COVID-19. Now, if you're thinking what COVID-19 concerns, well, you have to know that even though right now we are better equipped to deal with the pandemic than we were maybe 2 years back, fact of the matter is that China in many ways is still reeling from the after effects of the coronavirus, and they have had waves and spikes in cases too, just like most other nations have, and in many cases some which are even experiencing them as we speak. So they actually pulled out of hosting the tournament earlier this year. They said that, look, we won't be able to pull it off. We do have our concerns when it comes to the COVID situation, so we won't be able to do it. And the AFC had confirmed that, look, we're going to be naming a new host in due course. That host has finally been named, and that, of course, is Qatar. Now, obviously, there were things that were said about how it is that Qatar would be in a good position to, host the tournament. So naturally, there was a statement made by the AFC president where he said that, given the short lead time that is there in preparation, we know that the hard work will begin immediately for Qatar, but we are also confident that they can actually stage a worthy spectacle befitting of Asia's crown jewel tournament. Now, again, it is worth noting that for Qatar, the turnaround time actually is less, but the advantage that they'll have is they've already done so much preparation for the FIFA World Cup that really majority of the infrastructure is already in place. All that they'll need to be doing is a little bit of maybe a refurbish in certain places, maybe just get some new prep done. Is not a lot of work, or at least not as much work that was done for the World Cup, because of course a lot of that groundwork has already been done. So really the infrastructure is in place, and the short turnaround time doesn't make it too hard for Qatar, at least not in this particular case when it comes to hosting this tournament. Most other nations may have struggled, but despite that, Indonesia and South Korea did offer to host the tournament as well. In the AFC chose to go with Qatar. Now, the main question, and the reason why I'm sure a lot of you all have been tuned in, is wondering where it is that this plays into the 2027 AFC Asian Cup. Well, the reason for that is simple. There were 3 bids that were shortlisted by the AFC when it came to them deciding who it is that would be hosting the 2027 AFC Asian Cup. Those 3 bids were from Qatar, India, and Saudi Arabia. Now, because Qatar ended up getting to host the 2023 tournament, they had to actually pull out of potentially hosting it in 2027 because, well, those are the rules. The rules are that 2 countries will not be hosting that same tournament back to back, and generally speaking, you will look to spread around the hosting duties. And so because of that, from 3 bids, they were only now shortlisted to 2 bids, and one of those bids is of course the Saudi Arabian bid, and the other bid is the Indian bid. So that's the really interesting part. And of course, if India can get to host this tournament, it would be a massive deal for them, because of course it would then ensure that they would be part of the tournament for the 3rd straight year. Remember, they made it in 2019, they have qualified for the event in 2023, but if they are granted hosting rights, that means that they will automatically qualify for the tournament, because of course the hosts are given an automatic entry into such global tournaments. It would also be a massive deal, not just because of course India would be billing the tournament for 3 years, but also because of the fact that India have never actually hosted this tournament before. And you would remember that, of course, there's a lot going on as far as Indian football is concerned. Remember, 2017, you had India hosted the Under-17 Boys World Cup. This year, as we speak, India is hosting the Under-17 Women's World Cup. So there is hope that India can actually start hosting more and more tournaments, and that in turn will actually lead to, a galvanization and interest in the sport. And now again, the two tournaments that I mentioned prior were age group tournaments. If India actually get to host a tournament with the senior team, that would be considered a massive statement of intent by the AIFF, and would, at least in theory and their belief, help or further popularize the sport in the world and get people to actually watch and support the national team, which of course would always be a nice thing for them if they can manage it. Now, obviously, as I said, there is competition still, because I'm pretty sure the Saudi Arabian bid will be very strong for more reasons than one. But you also have to look into the fact that with Qatar now being out of the fray, with Qatar there, India looked like at best having a very distant chance of getting to host the tournament. But now with Qatar having to pull out due to getting the 2023 hosting duties, it actually levels the playing field considerably, and it would be a great boost for India if it can happen. Now, enough about how it is that I feel about this, or whether or not you think it can happen. Tell me, what do you guys think? Do you think that it would be a major boost for India if they get to host this tournament, or do you think maybe it would be better if they actually spend time focusing on the qualifiers or other things beyond the Continental Cup? Do let us know in the comments below, and of course don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and tap the bell icon so you know when we're uploading a new video for you guys or going live. Then you can go and follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, and last but not least, download the AajTak app. Thank you all once again for joining us. As always, I've been Shane Das, and I hope to see you all with us through today, but for now, goodbye.